So much talk about spring football this year because of ideas that some didn't want to have games. And then you had the schools that started saying, hey, how come we don't scrimmage against each other or take advantage of that? It was too late in the day or the calendar to do that. North Texas Reps, theirs up this weekend, and we're joined by Eric Morris, the head coach at North Texas, with us. He's been with us before. Paul Catalina, David Smoke on 365 Sports. We had Lance Leipold on yesterday on Tuesday, I think it was, from Kansas, and I asked him, I said, did you pretty much get what you needed, at least for the most part, done? He said, it's almost like when you ask a coach on National Signing Day, do you like your class? And every coach normally, and you do, but every coach, Eric, always says, yeah, we got everybody we wanted, and you kind of like, that's just the standard default answer. Have you had a successful spring?
Yeah, I think so far. I think we're on the right track. I don't think we're quite ready yet to go out and compete in conference play or pre-conference play. I think there's a couple things that need to come together. I think this day and age, especially at the G5 level, being able to put together almost a new roster each and every year is something that's been super important. Used to the old days of retain and develop these guys is something that's just changed. And I think we're still in the developmental mode, and that's more important now through the spring process, just because you're going to have a bunch of new prospects on your roster. And sometimes you're not going to be able to retain some of your better players and some of your young, better players. But really like what we were able to put together as far as bringing in some guys to help mid-year transfer portal wise, signed a really good class high school wise. I mean, we played 9 true freshmen last year that played a ton of reps for us. So really looking forward for those guys making a jump. And then getting Coach Cassidy over here from Sam Houston was huge for us. And he was able to bring, 8 of his players with him. And 7 of those guys were starters for him at Sam Houston. So I think that's helped a ton for us this spring. And those guys, knowing the defense, knowing the expectations of how we practice, what we're trying to get accomplished has been big for us. So we're close right now. I think we have a few missing pieces right now that we need to put together in the second portal window. And but we're well on our way to I think putting together a pretty good squad for the 25 season.
Chandler Morris transferred to Virginia. You had to replace him. I know Reese Poffenbarger comes in. I know you've got a couple of freshmen. How do you feel? One of your guys is about to be the first pick in the draft. You're a quarterback guru, Eric. We know this about you. You confident about that position going in?
We'll run somebody out there that can complete a forward pass. I promise you that much. Yeah. So, I think the quarterback room holistically is better than it's ever been here. I think we have 3 guys that are competing their tails off this spring right now. I mean, it's been really fun to see, Reese come in as an older guy that 2 years ago, had great success at Albany, led the FCS in a lot of different categories. Then you throw, Reese right behind him. You got Drew Messamaker, who's, one of the coolest stories in all of college football, I think, right now. I mean, a guy that hadn't started a game at the quarterback position since 9th grade B team. And then comes out, and it was something that he's practiced so well for us, for 6 months. And he's the guy that won the backup job in fall camp last year and beat out 2 other scholarship guys. And we thought he deserved it. So he got a ton of reps throughout the season. We were able to kind of develop him and then practice so well in bowl prep to watch him go out there and actually execute it and have some game footage of him actually being able to do it on the big stage was so cool for me to see. I mean, he's a great young man. I think in this day and age in the transfer portal, he went through a hard situation in high school where they brought in a quarterback his senior year when he was slated to start. And, something he didn't pout about it. He went to the coach and asked, hey, can I move to safety and be the punter so I can help this team out? And so really have been shocked to see his progression. I mean, I think he's a guy that has the ability to play football for a really long time. So really like Drew's progression right now. He's had a ton of reps in this thing. And then bringing Chris Jimerson in, who I think is way ahead of schedule right now. I mean, a kid that should be in high school. He's played a lot of football, starting all 4 years at North Crowley, to watch the run they went on this year.
Yep.
To be able to beat Duncanville, DeSoto, Westlake, all these stacked teams all, in the same year is super impressive. So we believe in him at quarterback, and I think he's shown us in a short amount of time that he's more than capable of being an elite quarterback at this level.
Yeah, that you just ripped off about like the latest lineage other than North Shore, right? In high school football with the names you mentioned with Duncanville and then DeSoto, obviously with Westlake as well. On the Master Maker, he's from Vandergrift, right? And I've done some midway broadcast. That's a fantastic high school program. I think their coach, did he just not retire? I don't want to say that, but that's a really good program. What does it mean? It doesn't mean you're automatically a good quarterback, but coming out of one of those programs like that.
Well, I mean, I think this is a unique one. I mean, Drew's a guy that there was a guy that was a baseball Baylor commit that was, the starter for the 2 years before him. And so that guy kind of had earned his job and did nothing to give it up. And so Drew was kind of in the wings to come and show what he could do as a senior. And then, they have an offensive coordinator move in that, his son is a quarterback that's a 4-star that's committed to Louisville, I believe, at the time.
Yep.
So there was so much that went into it, and Drew believed that summer and through fall camp that he was fighting for the job, and it was just one of those situations where he didn't get a play, and had a buddy of mine that told me about him that had seen him throw. So we had a walk-on spot open and was able to watch Drew throw that spring and kind of shocked me. The kid's 6'4.5", 220 pounds, can run. He squats over 500 pounds, super strong guy, athletic. And so he had all these tools and attributes, a smart kid. And so we were kind of blown away once we saw him start putting it all together when we got out on the film in fall camp last year. And he just continues to progress. And so yeah, I mean, super excited about the potential of Drew and Chris. And like I said, I mean, I think nowadays, if you have 3 good quarterbacks in your room, I mean, you got a good situation at hand. And so, we don't operate with 5 scholarship guys like you did in the older days. I mean, I think with the moving and shaking of that room every single year, you want to have 3 guys that you trust. And I like, kind of the spatial, how we've spaced them out in classes right now.
Eric Morris, head coach at North Texas, with us on 365 Sports.
What is different for you as you prepare for each season from year one to now? Does it feel different, or is there a comfort level that you've established, or is it, given the fact that you guys never stop working, it's hard to be comfortable?
No, I think that you gain some confidence, and you have to grow and learn from your mistakes in any kind of profession you're in. And I think if you're not doing that, then you're not maximizing your potential. And so I think, the familiarity now that we have with the American Conference, I think that was one thing our first year, North Texas was making the jump at the time. All the tape from the year before was Conference USA, and all of a sudden we're moving into a new conference. And so didn't know how we were going to stack up, from a resources standpoint, from just a skill set standpoint. Are we big enough? Are we strong enough? Are we fast enough? How do we match up with these teams? And I thought those first 2 years, I think with the top half of this league, I think we needed to get better in the trenches, up front on both sides of the football. And that's something that we focused on. Now, as you guys know, it's hard to retain those guys, from our first year here. Our left tackle starts at Texas Tech. Our left guard starts at Oklahoma. Our center starts at Mississippi State. Our other center just went to Kansas. So, it's hard to continue to do it, but I think we've kind of found a recipe and not only, recruiting our high school guys, developing them, but also a recipe on what transfer prospects that we brought in, how have we been successful in the portal? What's our niche in the portal? And so I think I have familiarity with the conference more so than what I did year one. And then learning how to navigate the portal and the high school kids at this level, at this school, has been something I think we've grown in those areas. And so super excited about this squad. I think this should be our most complete squad. Not say this is, we're better at these certain positions. We have some unproven people at certain positions, but I think just our depth and an amount of production that we're returning right now. And especially if you take into account, the guys on defense coming over from Sam Houston, what they were able to do last year.
Eric, does it help that you're a Texas guy, that you've coached in Texas, you played college in Lubbock, and where you are now and where you were at Incarnate Word? I know you went to Washington State for a short stint, but does it help that you are one of the states when you go to recruit high school football?
I think just in high school, I think and depending on the situation, I think you find situations where it helps a lot, and then you find a situation or two where really it doesn't carry as much weight. And I think, we went a little bit heavier in the portal this year. And I think, the portal has turned into, our visits used to be 2 days and they're elaborate, and you wine and dine them, you show them all the facilities, you take them through everything. And I think nowadays the kids, they want to know the coach, meet the coach, do we jive personality wise? They want to see the system. What are we going to ask them to do in the system? And they want to know how much money they're going to make. And I think you can shorten it down, and they don't care about, some of the resources or some of the facilities. And I think those things, can obviously, I don't think they hurt you in any way, but I don't think that's the factor in a bunch of these decisions that kids are making right now. But at the end of the day, it's still about opportunity, because we've had a lot of kids that were great players here at North Texas that have chosen to leave for more money somewhere, and it's killed their career, and they haven't gotten on the field, and their production has gone down. And the majority of them has probably been that way, to be honest with you. We've had a couple that, I think have had some success, and hopefully will have a chance to continue their playing career. But the majority of them, it's been something where now they're going to a backup role or lesser role and not used the same way. And so yeah, I think, some of those things are hard to explain to 19, 22-year-olds, especially when you start involved in money in the conversation. But yeah, I think to your point, I think in high school, there's definitely a lot of situations where my dad being a high school head coach, me having great relationships in this state with high school coaches pays huge dividends for us. But there's a bunch of times where it really has no effect on it, and we got to do a great job building relationships with kids and making sure they fit our program.
You mentioned, all that you said about, trying to convince kids about, this, you might not start there. It's also, isn't that one of the hardest things? Like, okay, now I coach this kid to be confident. I don't want to tell him not to be so confident, but like, it does kind of bite you in the butt a little bit, doesn't it? Because like, oh, he's confident. He doesn't think he's not going to start. You want that confidence in your players, but sometimes the reality of a situation is hard to explain.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the more this becomes a business, and, I think every single day, like, these kids are going to be able to be rewarded for doing certain things well on Saturdays. And they're going to have to approach it that way each and every day. And so, yeah, I hate at some point, I got into this business because I love helping people, meet their potential and do some things they never thought was possible. I love to see the evolution of kids and them achieve great things. And so, sometimes it's hard for me because, I'm still a little bit old school and loyal and things, but at the same time, if somebody was offering me crazy amounts of money in college when I was 18, 19 years old, I don't know what decision I would have made. So I think, every year now, and especially at the group of 5, it's about putting together the best roster for that year. And I think we have to get over our feelings and know that some kids might go to, a situation that they think better their or their family's life. And we have to get that. But my job ultimately is year in, year out to put the best product on the field. And that's changed. It's changed from what it was 10, 15 years ago. And so we have to do a great job of learning how to navigate these different situations that come up. And the cool thing is, I think everybody at our level is dealing with this same problem. So it's not just a North Texas problem. Everybody's going to have to deal with the same thing. But ultimately, we want guys to be successful. I want my players to be successful. I want my coaches to be successful. I mean, same thing. We've lost a lot of great coaches here that have left here for more money and better opportunities for their families. And so at the end of the day, I think that I love watching people be successful, and sometimes, that might be here, it might be somewhere else.
Are there times, Eric, you hear about tampering, and North Texas is going to be a place that probably gets hit. We've talked to other coaches from the American Athletic Conference and others. I think it's everywhere. But has there ever been a time where you were tempted to, when you know something was going on, that you wanted to pick up the phone and call a coach that was crossing the line?
Yeah, I've done it before. Yeah,
okay.
I've done it for sure. There's no doubt. And I think that, the bigger problem, I think, right now in this whole thing is agents. And I think that these agents are in for money grabs. And so, although there's certain situations where maybe a couple kids do need agents, that we're getting into that type of money and for them to look over what these kids are receiving. But what I hate is, that some of these agents for my players are reaching out to other programs and asking if they're interested in this, and then asking what the market value is for that. And so that's become more of an issue, in my opinion, is the agents being able to work behind the scenes. They don't have any repercussions for any of these rules that are going on right now. So, I know coaches are doing it. I know recruiting staffs are doing it. I know people doing it by getting a hold of high school coaches and going through different channels. But at the end of the day, because what hurts for me is if I know, a kid that's going to be a starter here, mm-hmm. and he's making, a good chunk of money while he's playing college football, is being recruited to be a backup somewhere. And especially in this late portal window where a kid's going to get there late, he's not going to be on the field, and that agent just set that kid up for failure, and that kid could possibly not ever play football again. And I've just seen it happen with my kids here. And so, that's become the biggest issue, in my opinion.
The American Athletic Conference is really good. It's deep. There's a lot of teams, and I know you got other things you need to do, and we appreciate your access today. It is a really good conference. How good is it?
Yeah, it's been fun for me to navigate this conference. I mean, I think the coolest thing about it is I think you get a little bit of everything in this conference, which makes it unique. I mean, next year on the schedule, we're going to play 3 triple option teams. I mean, we got Army, Navy, and then, Rice is now in the spread option gun stuff, which I'm, thankful that we play them later, because, I don't know what that's going to look like, and it'll take us studying that. And then I think it was actually a good move for Rice to be able to do something a little bit different. So we see those, I think you got Tulane, who's done such a great job, who's going to be a little bit more traditional and put big tight ends in, have a big defensive line. They really value running the football. They really value playing great defense. You got what Drev Traylor's been able to do in his, short little tenure at UTSA. He's been nothing but phenomenal. His teams are always tough as nails. Mm-hmm. They're, South Florida, I think, investing more financially than anybody in the conference. They're trying to make a push to get into the Power Fours. Have great resources with great players in Florida. Memphis has done a great job, the last 4 or 5 years. I think, even more, probably the last 10 years of really being able to find elite talent that have gone on to the next level. East Carolina is a great, historic program that has great fan support. So, yeah, I mean, you just look down at, Tulsa's had their runs. There's just so many UAB. There's a bunch of great teams and really cool cities to go see these venues. So I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in this conference. And I agree, I think is the best, group of 5, group of 6, whatever you call it, conference. And Boise obviously had a great year last year, but if you look back and if you would have done the playoffs the way they're doing it now for the last 6 or 7 years, the American team would have been the one that got in there. So that's something we got to get back to, and to get a chance to go to the playoff one day. I think something that we all look forward to in this conference.
Well, at least you have a chance, right? I mean, because of the new format of 12 teams, I mean, Boise got in. I mean, and it was great to see that happen. And I know God knows, I know you've taken thousands of calls and texts or whatever, people wanting to pick your brain about Cam Ward. Obviously, he's a great talent. How often have people hit you up to get your feedback on him from the time when you coached him at Incarnate Word?
Our SID, our poor SID guy, every single day, and it's not just from the West Columbia beat writer down there. I mean, these are all national outlets. Obviously, with him projected as being the number one pick, and then being a 0-star recruit, and obviously blossoming and using this transfer portal to kind of move up the waves, be on the national stage the way he was this year at Miami, perform at such a high level. Some of the uncanny resemblance of a Patrick Mahomes type of player, of the style that he plays with. I think it's a really cool, interesting story, right? And so I think people want to dig into, do a deep dive on what made him special. What did I see him? How did everybody else miss on him? How does a guy go from Incarnate Word to the number one pick of the draft? And so, Cam's a fighter. He's a competitor. He walked in my office the first day he showed up on campus. We had a returning All-American quarterback, and he said, "Coach, I'm going to be the starting quarterback here next year," and shut the door and walked out. And so, so confidence is something that Cam Ward has never had a problem with, even before he had even a touch of success. I do tell people I think COVID was awesome for Cam because he got pretty much a whole year to prepare and learn how to play in the gun, learn our reads, because he'd never done that in high school. And so I think he had a unique way of slowly getting introduced to the game, playing a 6-game shortened season in the spring. And then, obviously he's able to light the world on fire as a freshman there at Incarnate Word. And so, but I think with him having that preparation that year was crucial to his development.
Paul, want to wrap it up with you?
There were games I watched, watching him through his career, towards when he started to get buzz and you guys got some time on, people say, hey, you watch this Cam Ward, then Wazoo, then, of course, at Miami last year. Look, Miami did not have a defense that they could rely on. And there, by the grace of Cam Ward, is between them and a double-digit win season. He was so good and such an amazing leader. He does, like you mentioned, that confidence. That story doesn't surprise me, given the fact that there were situations like, hey, we just blew a lead. You've got 90 seconds. Go fix it. And he would just It was like they said, oh, this is the most fun thing I could possibly do. He's having a blast.
Yeah, the cool thing for us, we didn't have a lot of film evidence on Cam of playing in the gun in our system. There was, he was in a tee, and there was some cool play action where you could see the arm talent in high school. Obviously, he was great at our camp where we fell in love with him. But, the cool thing about Cam was recruiting him and watching him play basketball. And he was such an elite basketball player. And I think that's why he's so good at filling people around him, manipulating people in short space areas. Why he's so great in the pocket is he can feel those things. And he was an incredible basketball player. He's all-time leading scorer in West Columbia history. Great scorer, great passer, facilitator. You could see his leadership qualities, his competitiveness. And so I think that's kind of the place where we fell in love and we're like, okay, like this kid has all these traits that we want.
Yeah, you did a hell of a job finding him because, like you said, not many people knew about him. You didn't even know much about him. Love the stories about him. Really like what you're doing, Eric. We appreciate your time. Good luck this year. Hope to talk to you maybe before you start practices in August. And thanks for your time today.
God bless you guys. Go Mean Green.
Yes, sir. Eric Morris.